You know, being here with you brings back a flood of memories. I remember the first time I arrived on campus as an incoming law student in the fall of 1969, wearing my bell-bottoms, driving a beat-up old car with a mattress tied to the roof. I had no idea what to expect. And now, to be honest, I had some trouble making up my mind between Yale and Harvard law schools. Then one day, while we were still in that period of decision-making, I was invited to a cocktail party at Harvard for potentially incoming law students, where I met a famous law professor. A friend of mine, a male law student, introduced me to this famous law professor. I mean, truly, big three-piece suit, watch chain. And my friend said, Professor, this is Hillary Rodham. She's trying to decide whether to come here next year or sign up with our closest competitor. Now, the great man gave me a cool, dismissive look and said, well, first of all, we don't have any close competitors. And secondly, we don't need any more women at Harvard. Now, I was leaning toward Yale anyway, but that pretty much sealed the deal. And when I came to Yale, I was one of 27 women out of 235 law students. It was the first year women were admitted to the college. And as that first class of women prepared to graduate 4 years later, the New York Times reported on Yale's foray into coeducation, noting that the women, quote, worked harder and got somewhat better grades than the 940 men graduating with them, a fact, they went on to say, that some of the men apparently found threatening. Well, I was shocked. But over the years, Yale has been a home away from home for me, a place I've returned to time and again. I spoke to Class Day back in 2001 on the 300th anniversary of the university. And I hope that that will be the case for many of you as well. This school has been responsible for some of my most treasured friends and colleagues, people like Jake Sullivan and Harold Coe, and I've watched some of you grow up, like Rebecca Shaw, who's graduating today, and you'll hear from shortly. And I've been honored to serve over the last year or two, working with some of the Yale Law School faculty, including the new dean, Heather Gerken. Now, Yale grads, many of whom are also here today, have worked for me in the United States Senate, the State Department, on my presidential campaigns, and I have been so well served. I have a very dedicated campaign intern here graduating, David Scheimer, the class of 2018. But I have to confess, of all the formative experiences I had at Yale, perhaps none was more significant than the day during my second year when I was cutting through what was then the student lounge with some friends. And I saw this tall, handsome guy with a beard who looked like a Viking. I said to my friend, well, who is that? And she said, well, that's Bill Clinton. He's from Arkansas, and that's all he ever talks about. And then, as if on cue, I hear him saying, and not only that, we grow the biggest watermelons in the world. And I was like, who is this person? But, you know, he kept looking at me, and I kept looking back. And so we were in the law library one night. I was studying. But I couldn't help but see, you know, occasionally as I lifted my head up, that he was, again, looking at me. So finally I thought, this is ridiculous. So I got up, went over to him, and I said, if you're going to keep looking at me and I'm going to keep looking back, we at least ought to be introduced. I'm Hillary Rodham. Who are you? And that started a conversation that continues to this day. Now, it was also here at Yale that I saw a flyer in the law school on a bulletin board that changed my life. Now, some of your parents and grandparents may remember flyers and bulletin boards. For the rest of you, suffice it to say, that was how we got information. It was like Facebook, but the bulletin board didn't steal your personal information. So, one day, I saw a note about a woman named Marian Wright Edelman, a Yale Law School graduate, civil rights activist, who would go on to found the Children's Defense Fund. Marian was coming back to campus to give a lecture. I went. I was captivated to hear her talk about using her Yale education to create a Head Start program in rural Mississippi. And I wound up working for her that summer, and the experience opened my eyes to the ways that the law can protect children or come up short. Because like many of you, I learned just as much outside the four walls of the classroom as I did sitting in a lecture hall. And I discovered a passion that has animated my life and my work ever since. Now, a lot has changed since I was here. In 2019, Yale will celebrate the 50th anniversary of the matriculation of women at the college and the 150th anniversary of the first women graduate students at Yale. And I heard that Yale officially changed the term freshman to first year. I also heard, amazingly, that the Duke's men and the Whiffenpoofs have started welcoming women. Now, as for my long-lost Whiffs audition tape, I have buried it so deep, not even WikiLeaks will be able to find it. Because if you thought my emails were scandalous, you should hear my singing voice. I find it very exciting that today's graduates hail from all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, Guam, and 56 other countries. And in your 4 years on campus, you've survived late nights in the Bass cubicles and early mornings in the Sterling stacks. You've trekked up Science Hill. Maybe you've even found love at the Last Chance dance. And now you're ready to take on your next adventure. But maybe some of you are reluctant to leave. I understand that. It's possible to feel both. Because the class of 2018 is graduating at one of the most tumultuous times in the history of our country. And I say that as